So welcome to LiberalViewer Sunday Live Clip Roundup. Thanks for joining me. I've got a little bit under 20 clips for you on several topics for what should be an interesting show tonight, I think. As always, this is my weekly broadcast of the best clips from the Sunday morning news analysis shows from the corporate media here in the United States, along with my commentary between the clips. This week I'll be taking clips from 4 of the regular 5 big outlets of ABC, CBS, CNN, and Fox News, with no NBC this week because Meet the Press took the week off. And I'm also going to use some quasi-news clips, as usual, here at the beginning, from HBO's Real Time with Bill Maher and last night's Saturday Night Live. And the topics I'll be covering tonight include some quick clips on immigration and NSA spying from Mark Zuckerberg, and even a War on Christmas clip at the end from Sarah Palin, but I'll mostly be focusing on the big breaking news that the United States and Iran reached an interim deal overnight. First, though, I want to talk about what was the big news earlier in the week when Democrats in the U.S. Senate got rid of the filibuster for executive branch and judicial appointments, and that's sometimes called the nuclear option. And the whole thing left me with some mixed feelings for reasons that Bill Maher described on HBO's Real Time last Friday here.
This week, the Senate Democrats deployed the nuclear option. You heard about this shit? Yeah. And that means the filibusters out. Prevents Republican minority from filibustering Obama's judicial appointments. Now, yes, I heard your applause. It feels good now. It's not going to feel so good when President Ted Cruz fills the D.C. Circuit Court with Ann Coulter, Bill O'Reilly, and a fetus.
So, yeah, I agree that lifetime judicial appointments aren't necessarily the best place to start getting rid of the filibuster. And I actually supported the filibuster for some of George W. Bush's judicial appointees, but Republicans have been a lot worse than even Democrats were against George W. Bush, and especially when it comes to appointments to positions in Obama's own administration, where there the filibuster really doesn't make any sense to me, and the fact that the Republicans are really more the bad guys here wasn't lost on Saturday Night Live's Seth Meyers in the first joke on last night's Weekend Update that you can see here.
After Democrats this week changed the rules in the Senate limiting filibusters, Minority Leader Mitch McConnell warned the Democrats that they will regret changing the rules, quote, sooner than you think. And then he laughed maniacally and flew away on a ladder hanging from a helicopter.
Yeah, I like that picture of Senator Mitch McConnell as some kind of Bond supervillain. But, of course, over on Fox News Sunday, I couldn't help but notice that the summary of this filibuster issue in the introduction to the program was really heavily skewed against the Democrats. And I'll show you how that was shown on Fox News Sunday this morning at the beginning here.
Then, Washington gridlock intensifies with a power grab in the U.S. Senate as Republicans accuse Democrats of trying to divert attention from Obamacare.
Millions of Americans are hurting because of a law Washington Democrats forced upon them. And what do they do about it? They cook up some fake fight over judges.
So yeah, the fact that there were judges involved, that kind of came out at the end there in sort of the fake fight part of Mitch McConnell's statement. But according to Fox News' introduction, I guess the whole filibuster thing was really about a power grab and distracting from Obamacare. And on the point of distracting from Obamacare, this whole Iran thing, some Republicans accused President Obama of actually trying to distract from Obamacare. Who was it who Senator John Cornyn from Texas tweeted that maybe this whole Iran deal is a distraction from Obamacare? And on that point, I noticed there wasn't a lot of talk about Obamacare on the Sunday show, so and especially because of the breaking news with Iran. And that's actually what I wanted to get to. Let me really quickly load up those next 3 clips now. The news broke overnight that the U.S. and Iran have reached this interim deal that's supposed to last for 6 months while they negotiate the final deal. And I've been sort of covering this on my LiberalViewer Sunday live clip roundups for the last several weeks, since this first broke that they were having these negotiations. It was actually supposed to happen a couple weeks ago, and the French stopped the whole thing. And I guess this isn't just a deal between the United States and Iran. It's actually 6 different parties. It's and I may not get. It's like China, Russia, European Union, France, and I'm missing some. I'm sorry about that. But anyway, I'll show you the way the deal was described as breaking news on ABC by reporter Terry Moran, who I guess he's giving details of the deal. I didn't think it was that great a summary, but I'll show you how it was described on ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos at the beginning of the show here.
Good morning, Georgia. The deal hammered out in the wee hours of the morning here is full of either promise or peril, depending on your point of view. The headlines: Iran has agreed to suspend the growth of its nuclear program. It won't add to its stock of enriched uranium. It will degrade some of the most dangerous enriched uranium it has. And it has agreed to open up its nuclear facilities to daily inspections by international officials. The U.S. has agreed to ease sanctions to the tune of about $6 or $7 billion. That's actually a relatively small portion of the sanctions that have brought Iran's economy to its knees. And this whole thing is temporary. 6 months. Neither side trusts each other here as they enter into negotiations to try to reach a comprehensive agreement, lifting all sanctions in exchange for an end to Iran's nuclear weapons ambitions. That is a very tough nut to crack.
No
Tough nut to crack. That doesn't seem to be like really that deep an analysis there from Terry Moran. And I actually think the way they described the deal didn't give all that many details about the different kinds of uranium that Iran is going to still be able to. They're going to get rid of their 20% uranium but keep their 3.5% uranium, and they're going to be able to keep all the centrifuges they have and replace ones that break but not get any new centrifuges, and they're going to stop the plutonium reactor, the Arak, A-R-A-K reactor, not Iraq, but Arak. And actually, I want to show President Obama's I want to show about a minute and a half or so of President Obama's statement overnight where he announced the deal, and I think he actually did a better job of explaining some of the details and the incentives. And anyway, here's President Obama last night or this morning, depending on your time zone in this clip.
Today's announcement is just a first step. It achieves a great deal. For the first time in nearly a decade, we have halted the progress of the Iranian nuclear program, and key parts of the program will be rolled back. Iran has committed to halting certain levels of enrichment and neutralizing part of its stockpiles. Iran cannot use its next-generation centrifuges, which are used for enriching uranium. Iran cannot install or start up new centrifuges, and its production of centrifuges will be limited. Iran will halt work at its plutonium reactor, and new inspections will provide extensive access to Iran's nuclear facilities and allow the international community to verify whether Iran is keeping its commitments. These are substantial limitations which will help prevent Iran from building a nuclear weapon. Simply put, they cut off Iran's most likely paths to a bomb. Meanwhile, this first step will create time and space over the next 6 months for more negotiations to fully address our comprehensive concerns about the Iranian program. And because of this agreement, Iran cannot use negotiations as cover to advance its program. On our side, the United States and our friends and allies have agreed to provide Iran with modest relief while continuing to apply our toughest sanctions. We will refrain from imposing new sanctions, and we will allow the Iranian government access to a portion of the revenue that they have been denied through sanctions. But the broader architecture of sanctions will remain in place, and we will continue to enforce them vigorously. And if Iran does not fully meet its commitments during this 6-month phase, we will turn off the relief and ratchet up the pressure.
So yeah, there's that's the deal described by Obama, and I think there were a lot more details there. And it's an interim 6-month deal where I guess Iran's going to get about $7 billion of their own money unfrozen, and in exchange they're going to halt basically their nuclear program, and but they're not going to dismantle anything. And I don't have any clips showing this, but a couple different places they talked about the running, or the last sprint to a nuclear bomb, how long it would take Iran to get a nuclear bomb, and that this deal is going to double it from 2 months to 4 months. I guess that's better than nothing, and then they're going to have 6 months of negotiations to some final deal. But of course there were a lot of people who didn't like this. First person to come out and really trash this deal was Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and I happened to record the middle of the night CNN show New Day, where happened to be broadcasting at the time that Benjamin Netanyahu came on. This was about 3:20 in the morning California time. I don't know what time it was where you were, but here's what Bibi Netanyahu said about this deal, that it makes everybody less safe, according to him. Here it is.
This agreement has made the world a much more dangerous place. I know that many share the concern of Israel, especially in the region, and there's a reason for this. For years, the international community has demanded that Iran cease all uranium enrichment. Now, for the first time, the international community has formally consented that Iran continue its enrichment of uranium. And this is in direct contravention of UN Security Council resolutions. Iran is taking only cosmetic steps, which it could reverse easily within a few weeks. And in return, sanctions that took years to put in place are going to be eased. Iran is going to receive billions of dollars worth in sanctions relief. So the pressures on Iran are being lifted, they're being eased. And with the lifting of this pressure, this first step could very well be the last step. Without continued pressure, what incentive does the Iranian regime have to take serious steps that actually dismantle its nuclear weapons capability? Why would it dismantle the centrifuges and the plutonium reactor? None of this is covered in the agreement. They're left intact.
So yeah, that is one of the chief complaints about this deal, that it doesn't start dismantling the program, it leaves it in place. But and I'll show John Kerry in a minute reacting to that. But first, I want to show who in the United States was on board with Bibi Netanyahu there. I want to show a couple Republicans who basically said the same thing. And I'll show some Democrats who also are skeptical, but the real, of course, negative reaction to this came from Republicans. One of the worst of which, I think, was Republican Mike Rogers. He's from Michigan. He's head of the Intelligence Committee. He's a former FBI agent, and he's really a hardliner on a lot of these issues. And he was over on CNN's State of the Union talking to Candy Crowley about why he thinks that also it's kind of the same thing. I showed you Bibi Netanyahu saying this makes the world a more dangerous place, and here's Representative Mike Rogers talking about how Iran is a dangerous place. And I'll show you that clip.
Well, it is a very dangerous place that has the sheer determination. And here's what we need to understand. So the rhetoric coming out of, and even what I heard with the secretary recently, this is a bipartisan effort here in opposition. So they went into the deal without Congress really being fully supportive, without our Arab League partners being fully supportive, without Israel being fully supportive. That tells you that somebody's not paying attention. And I would argue that's probably the folks who wanted a deal. Why now? Why release that pressure now? Iran has not changed. The Quds Force, which is their arm, their terrorist arm that does state-sponsored terrorism activities around the world, again, including trying an attempt here in the United States, they continue their cyber efforts to attack, according to public reports, financial institutions in the United States. None of that has changed. The only thing that's changed is you have now given them a permission slip to continue enrichment. That's what the Iranians walked away from. That's the one thing the whole world was trying to stop them from doing. That's why I don't understand their rhetoric on this. And we know that when you go down this path, we made this mistake in Pakistan, we made this mistake in North Korea, and now history is a great judge here and a great teacher. Why would you make the same mistake to a nation that will proliferate a nuclear arms race in the Middle East if they're successful getting a nuclear weapon?
Well, I mean, I do agree with Mike Rogers on that last point that if Iran gets a nuclear weapon, that it probably will create a lot more of nuclear states in the Middle East. They say that Saudi Arabia has already purchased a bomb from Pakistan by funding its nuclear program and could get a bomb delivered to them from Pakistan. I saw that discussed on one of the shows this morning, and there also be other nuclear states, and that wouldn't be good. But I don't agree with almost anything else Mike Rogers said there about how evil Iran is. He talked about some things were true and some things were kind of exaggerated, like that whole thing about the a story that Iran was going to assassinate the Saudi ambassador in Washington, D.C. There are a lot of holes in that story. I don't completely buy that one. And that whole thing about enrichment, I'm going to show several clips on that, or a few more clips on that in a minute. But I also want to show one more Republican. Tennessee Senator Bob Corker was over on Fox News Sunday, and he basically used some of the same talking points that you saw from Mike Rogers there. And he used the same North Korea example, and I think the way he puts it, Bob Corker here, he almost seems like he's blaming the fact that North Korea got an atomic bomb on Barack Obama, even though it happened during the George W. Bush administration. I don't know. You can decide for yourself when you listen to the clip right here.
Chris, my greatest concern throughout this whole situation is the North Korean issue, and that is you begin relieving sanctions, you end up basically with no deal. And so my greatest concern is seeing follow through here. Again, this administration is big on announcements, very short on substance. We see that time and time again. The American people are seeing that right now all across our country. And so my effort, the effort we've put forth in our office, is to hold their feet to the fire, to make sure that they actually do the things that are part of the UN Security Council agreements. We're very concerned that that is not going to be the case. And if you see the reaction in Iran right now, I mean, they're spiking the football in the end zone, saying that, look, we've consolidated our gains, we've relieved sanctions, we're going to have the right to enrich. So I want to make sure that we go on to the end zone here. I think there are going to be some people that want to impose additional sanctions. That's another effort that we may well take part in. But again, I just want to see this all the way through. We've seen what's happened in North Korea. They now have nuclear weapons, and I don't want to see that happen in Iran.
So yeah, there's Senator Bob Corker of Tennessee giving the same basic talking point, or some of the talking points you saw from the other Republican, Mike Rogers, saying some similar things to what you heard from Bibi Netanyahu. And so putting those all together as the criticism of the deal, I also want to show now a clip of Secretary John Kerry, who was on several shows this morning. He's the one who brokered the deal, and he's been up for 24 hours, and some of these interviews took place at 3 a.m. also. And but he is the first one I'm going to show is when he's on ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos, and George Stephanopoulos plays for him some Republican criticisms, not from those two Republicans. I think it's from Marco Rubio and Lindsey Graham, and you can see a very long, of course it's John Kerry, so it's kind of a long-winded answer, but not necessarily a bad answer to some of the criticism in this clip.
Marco Rubio says it will not freeze the Iranian nuclear program, makes a nuclear Iran more, not less likely. Lindsey Graham says unless the deal requires dismantling centrifuges, we haven't gained anything. Your response?
This negotiation is not the art of fantasy or the art of the ideal. It's the art of the possible, which is verifiable and clear in its capacity to be able to make Israel and the region safer. The fact is that Iran's ability to break out, George, will expand under this program. Therefore, Israel will be safer, the region will be safer. Iran's 20% uranium will be destroyed. Therefore, they are safer. Iran's 3.5% uranium stock will be frozen at its current level, and the centrifuges will not be able to be installed in places that could otherwise be installed and advance the program.
But not dismantle.
The fact is, we will have daily inspections. We will have daily inspections. No, that's not. That's correct. That's the next step. Now, the choice people have is, do you want to sit there and argue that you have to dismantle your program before you've stopped it? And while you're arguing about dismantling it, they progress. In 2003, Iran made an offer to the Bush administration that they would, in fact, do major things with respect to their program. They had 164 centrifuges. Nothing has happened. Therefore, here we are in 2013. They have 19,000 centrifuges, and they're closer to a weapon. You cannot sit there and pretend that you're just going to get the thing you want while they continue to move towards the program that they've been chasing. We've actually succeeded through the sanctions that Congress put in place to be able to get to a point where we're locking in knowledgeably what their current level is and forcing them to go backwards. And while we go through these next 6 months, we will be negotiating the dismantling. We will be negotiating the limitations. But you can't always start where you want to wind up.
Yeah, I thought that was a good defense of this deal, and I especially like that point he made about how Iran approached the George W. Bush administration in 2003. This was like right after the invasion of Iraq, and Iran was all scared that with all these U.S. troops right on their border, and this was before the counter or the insurgency set in, and this was right after like mission accomplished. So at that point, the George W. Bush administration turned down these peace feelers from Iran because they thought Iran was in such a weak position that the government would fall and they didn't have to deal with them. And as John Kerry pointed out there, at that point they had like 160 centrifuges, and now they have like tens of thousands. What was the number he said? Was it 60,000, 90,000? I'm sorry, didn't listen to, forgetting the number from my own clip. But I think that is the biggest weakness of the people who are opposing this deal is, you know, when they say that it doesn't dismantle the program or that it gives Iran more time, it's like a lot better than doing nothing. And I guess it'll depend on what happens in these next 6 months. But I thought John Kerry, though he was somewhat long-winded, did a pretty good job of defending the deal that he had made, even though he'd been up for 24 hours or whatever on our show. He was also over on, I believe it was he was also interviewed over on Face the Nation, I believe it was Face the Nation, by Margaret Brennan, and he explained in detail how he thinks that this deal is stopping Iran, or it helps prevent Iran from getting a bomb. And I'll show you that clip.
What does this actually do to prevent building a bomb?
Well, a whole bunch of things. Number one, they don't have enough enriched material to be able to build a bomb.
Yet.
They will destroy, correct, as of now. They will have to destroy the higher enriched uranium they have, which is critical to being able to build a bomb. Once they've destroyed that, they only have a lower enriched uranium. They are not allowed under this agreement to build additional enrichment facilities. We will have restrictions on the centrifuges, which are critical for enrichment.
President Obama said Israel and Saudi Arabia have a right to be skeptical. Are you skeptical that Iran will actually comply with the deal they just signed?
I think everybody has a right to be skeptical, because there are indications that there are people in Iran who have wanted to pursue a weapons program, that there have been secret facilities building some of those efforts towards that program. And so there's lots of reason. That's why we don't take anything at face value.
But you don't believe those are the people who you just signed a deal with, those people who were seeking a weapon?
You know, we did arms control agreements with the great enemy, the Soviet Union. We've done arms control agreements in other parts of the world. You don't trust. It's not based on trust. It's based on verification. It's based on your ability to know what is happening. So you don't have to trust the people you're dealing with. You have to have a mechanism put in place whereby you know exactly what you're getting and you know exactly what they're doing. And we believe we are at the beginning of putting that in place with Iran.
Iran.
So yeah, their Secretary of State John Kerry was explaining how he's skeptical and he has all this verification and he expects people to be skeptical. And you know, I showed a couple Republicans who were skeptical of this deal, but I also want to show Democratic Whip Steny Hoyer, who's sort of a more centrist Democrat over in the House. He talked about how he was skeptical of this deal, and you know, over in the House of Representatives, they actually passed some additional sanctions, which are waiting for passage in the Senate. And he was saying that he thinks that they should go ahead with these additional sanctions on Iran, but just put like a delay in for 6 months to see if this deal works, but to like put a stick there at the end if the carrot doesn't work. And anyway, I want to show Steny Hoyer also on Face the Nation talking about how even he as a Democrat is skeptical of the deal over in this clip.
Our policy is that Iran should not have a nuclear arms capability. That continues to be our policy. And the military option, as Secretary Kerry just said, is still on the table, and it needs to be on the table. We need to make sure that Iran does not move forward. I think that this is a marginal improvement. It does freeze some of their activity in place. And it continues the major sanctions in place. It's going to be costly on a continuing basis to them. I think that the Senate has a sanction bill that increases sanctions, which we passed in the House in July. I think moving forward with that, but not implementing it for 6 months, assuming that the Iranians do, in fact, what they say they're going to do. I think the Secretary of State is absolutely correct. Verification is the key here. We don't trust Iran. We need to verify that, in fact, they're going to do what they say they're going to do, and we'll move towards a final agreement which will ultimately dismantle and eliminate their ability to have a nuclear weapon.
So let me just...
So yeah, there are actually some Republicans who are going to try to push to get these sanctions passed now, which would actually blow up the deal, because one of the conditions of the deal is that there won't be any new sanctions for the next 6 months. But it sounds like there are Democrats who are going to modify it so that there's a 6-month delay, but that there will be sanctions, additional sanctions imposed on Iran if there isn't some final deal negotiated within 6 months. Now, it sounds like one of the big sticking points in the negotiations was whether Iran has a right to enrich uranium, and you saw that point come up both from Israeli Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu and also from the two Republicans I showed, Mike Rogers and Bob Corker, Senator from Tennessee. And I want to show you that actually whether Iran has a right to enrich uranium under the interim deal was something that seems to have been kind of finessed, because in the press conferences afterwards, the foreign minister of Iran said that this deal recognizes an Iranian right to enrich uranium, but Secretary John Kerry totally disputed that, and I want to show sort of the battling clips on that. First, here's a quick clip of the Iranian foreign minister. His name is Javad Zarif. And this actually happened last night, but when the deal was broken. But this is a clip that was shown on CNN's State of the Union right here.
We believe that the current agreement, the current plan of action, as we call it, in two distinct places, has a very clear reference to the fact that Iranian enrichment program will continue and will be a part of any agreement now and in the future.
So yeah, there is the Iranian foreign minister saying that he does have a right to enrich uranium. Iranian uranium rights there. That's gets almost a tongue twister, but I want to, and I'm loading up the next 3 clips. I haven't gotten the new software, but hopefully in the next week or two I will have this new software where I won't have to load up 3 clips at a time. But I want to show Secretary of State John Kerry, who specifically took on that question of whether the Iranians have a right to enrich uranium, and I'll show you that clip right here.
No, there is no right to enrich. We do not recognize a right to enrich. It is clear in the NPT, in the Non-Proliferation Treaty, it's very, very clear that there is no right to enrich. But under the terms of this agreement, there will be a negotiation over whether or not they could have a very limited, completely verifiable, extraordinarily constrained program where they might have some medical research or other things they could do, but there is no inherent right to enrich. And everywhere in this particular agreement, it states that they could only do that by mutual agreement, and that nothing is agreed on until everything is agreed on. That language appears at least twice in significant places in this agreement. So there is no agreement that they can enrich. They have ability to negotiate it, but they could only gain that capacity to have some enrichment, as some countries do, if they live up to the whole set of terms necessary to prove it's a peaceful program. So Iran has some very stiff hurdles that they're going to have to meet in order to do that. There is no right, and there is no right granted in this agreement.
So there you have the finesse, the diplomatic language between what the foreign minister of Iran said and what the Secretary of State of the United States says as to whether Iran has a right to enrich uranium. And basically they've left it as an open question that will have to be dealt with in the final deal, and it sounds like there's some wiggle room there as to whether Iran will have a right to enrich at a low level for medical research purposes or some. So there may be, I mean, that's where they're going to make the deal, if they're going to make a deal in the next 6 months, and that's what's really important about all this. And you know, on this point of whether loosening the sanctions is going to make it so that there's no further pressure on Iran to make a deal, that seemed to be what a lot of the Republicans, and especially Bibi Netanyahu, if you listen to his whole statement there, he talks about how beginning to let the air out of the sanctions is going to give the go-ahead for a lot of countries that never wanted to participate in the sanctions, are going to go ahead and break the sanctions, and it's all going to like fall apart because of this $7 billion being unfrozen. And I suppose that is one possible outcome. But, you know, there's another pressure that's going to happen here because what's going on in the United States is that they may impose additional sanctions after 6 months if there is no deal reached. And in Iran right now, there's a lot of relief about this interim deal. And the one clip I want to show is this, I think it's the New York Times reporter, I think I have that right, over the Tehran bureau, or the New York Times reporter in Tehran, who did a little Skype interview over on This Week with George Stephanopoulos, and he talked about how people are reacting to the deal inside Iran, which I didn't see a lot of reporting on, and so I'll show you. His name is Thomas Erdbrink. And he's, I think there's a little intro from, no, this is after an intro from George Stephanopoulos. And anyway, here's that clip.
You know what's very interesting? As I came back from the press conference with President Rouhani, I was almost embraced by my neighbors who for years have been asking me, Thomas, what will happen with the nuclear program? Where is this heading? Will there be more sanctions? And today, for the first time in a long time, they were all smiling. Before that, I was invited to a selected press conference at President Rouhani's office. He said that the regime of sanctions against Iran has now been broken. It's interesting to see the Iranian journalists, who are, of course, first journalists and secondly Iranians, as they say so themselves, how happy they were, how upbeat. And they are sharing a feeling that a lot of people here in Iran are actually at this moment saying they are experiencing, which is one of happiness, of hope. I called to the man who normally exchanged my dollars for me, and he told me that the Iranian national currency, which has lost over 100% over the last years because of sanctions to the dollar, had actually gained some strength this morning, in another sign that also business people feel that this agreement is one that will bring Iran forward in the coming months.
I'm not sure what that last thing you said about the Iranian currency losing 100%. I'm not sure how that's mathematically possible, but that whole report about how there's relief in Iran and that they feel like this is the beginning of the loosening of sanctions. On the one hand, that seems like it confirms what the Republicans are saying, but on the other hand, I think it actually creates a lot of pressure on the government of Iran that they have to deliver on a deal 6 months from now, because if the sanctions get ratcheted up again, that's going to cause a lot of discontent in their populace, in the population. The Iranian public is actually much more pro-American than a lot of the population in the Middle East, and I think that's because it's been 30 years since the United States did anything to prop up the regime. Of course, before that, they totally installed the Shah and got rid of Mossadegh and that whole thing. So, of course, the United States has a lot of reason to have gained the enmity of Iranians, but I think it's interesting there that the Iranian population that's been suffering under these sanctions is feeling relief, and I think that may actually create pressure on the Iranian government to deliver on a permanent loosening of sanctions and a continuation of this process. So maybe there actually will be a deal. I mean, it could go the other way, like Bibi Netanyahu was saying that maybe the sanctions will start breaking without any further deal. But I don't know. I'm not sure I can really give an opinion on which way it's going to go, but it's going to go one of those two ways maybe. But before I leave the whole Iran issue, there was one other story that broke, is that these recent negotiations, it's just been in the last few weeks that this big opening happened, and it was several weeks before that it was revealed that there was this communication between President Obama and the newly elected president of Iran, Rouhani. Well, one of the stories that came out over at the same time this deal broke was that there were secret negotiations going on between the Obama administration and Iran even before Rouhani was elected. And I want to show Martha Raddatz reporting on that on This Week with George Stephanopoulos in this clip.
We're also learning this morning, fascinating, that we not only had these high-level negotiations going on in Geneva, but separate secret talks for the last several months between the United States and Iran.
I love this part of the story, George. Imagine U.S. officials going over to Oman and in Geneva on a military airplane into Oman. This is the Deputy Secretary of State, William Burns, and a man named Jake Sullivan, who is the principal foreign policy advisor for Joe Biden. They went over there, met with senior Iranian officials, and nobody really knew about this, including some of our closest allies, including Israel. And they basically set the stage. They had about 5 secret meetings saying, how do we get to talks?
At the same
So yeah, I thought that was interesting, and the secret talks, and I guess of those, one of them occurred before the election of Rouhani, and it makes me almost wonder if that was, because the elections are kind of controlled, and Rouhani is supposedly the moderate in the race, and he's only moderate compared to the other people who the supreme leader, what's his name? It's not Ayatollah Khomeini. It's like the Ayatollah Khomeini. It's like a different pronunciation, or I don't know. It's slightly different, but he's the supreme leader of Iran, and he's really calling all the shots. And I don't know. Maybe because of that first meeting is the reason that Rouhani was allowed to win and take this whole initiative. So I don't know. Anyway, so those are the clips I want to show you on the breaking news from Iran, but I do want to show you a few more clips before I go to the discussion section and see if there are any good live discussion going on topics. So I'll be reading through your comments in just a couple minutes. So thank you. I think I have almost 100 people watching, so if you have any questions, especially on the topic of the clips, I'd like to get a little discussion going. But I also want to show a couple clips from Mark Zuckerberg, the founder of Facebook, was on This Week with George Stephanopoulos, and he made some interesting statements. First, this is, maybe I'm just ignorant, but this is the first time I had heard that he was involved in this whole pro-immigration reform movement, and they showed several clips of this group that he's head of that is going to try to get comprehensive immigration reform, and he especially said some really positive things about the so-called dreamers, and that's an issue I've worked on a lot. The dreamers are the people who are brought as children to the United States by people who didn't immigrate legally, undocumented, but not through any fault of their own. And some of them were brought, at the age of 6 months and think they're Americans and grow up here and then find out later in life that they're undocumented. It's kind of a sad story. And I was glad to see Mark Zuckerberg with all of his power taking up the issue of the dreamers and also of immigration reform. And I want to show a clip of that from ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos here.
These children who are, really talented, and they've grown up in America and they really don't know any other country besides that, but they don't have the opportunities that that we all enjoy. It's really heartbreaking, right? And it seems like it's one of the biggest civil rights issues of our time.
A civil rights issue? How do you mean?
There are 11 million undocumented people living in this country.
Some would argue that all 11 million are breaking the law and have no fundamental right to American citizenship. What would you say to them?
There are a lot of misconceptions about that, and a lot of them came here because they just want to work, they want to help out their families, and they want to contribute. We definitely should make it so that they can, so that there's a path for them to come into the country legally as well.
Well, I'm glad to see Mark Zuckerberg come out in favor of a pathway to citizenship. That's something that I've been working here, in California for the rights of immigrants, and also that's something I went and lobbied my congressman on a couple weeks ago, trying to get a pathway to citizenship for the 11 million people here who are undocumented and have to live in the shadows. And I did several stories about that when comprehensive immigration reform looked like it might actually pass the Congress. It passed the U.S. Senate, but kind of died in the House. And so I'm glad to see Mark Zuckerberg is behind that, but I don't think it's actually going to go anywhere in the Congress, at least not before 2014. Well, I don't know. I could be wrong. Maybe the Republicans will start getting cold feet about losing the Latino vote, and some things will pass through the House. I don't know. That remains to be seen, but it's kind of hard to see how that's going to happen in an election year. But having shown Mark Zuckerberg there talking about immigration reform, I thought it was kind of interesting. They asked him about NSA spying, and well, I'll tell you what I think after I show you the clip of Mark Zuckerberg answering the question about NSA spying here.
I certainly think that we all want national security, right? We want to live in a safe country, and we want to be protected from risks.
But is the route to safety through the mass collection of data?
I think that these things are always a balance in terms of doing the right things and also being clear and telling people about what you're doing. I think the government really blew it on this one, and I honestly think that they're continuing to blow it in some ways, and I hope that they become more transparent in that part of it.
So yeah, I think if the head of Facebook is telling you that you blew it on transparency and respecting privacy, you've got a big problem. Because, well, I don't. Most of my viewers, I don't have to tell you about Facebook's problems with both privacy and transparency. I mean, Mark Zuckerberg is not known for either, so I thought that was kind of amusing. And so before I finish up here, there's one more clip I want to show you, and then I think I have a little refutation of the clip. But it's Sarah Palin was over on Fox News Sunday, and I'm not sure, well, she's on a book tour. She talked about the filibuster, and I saw a Politico posting as to whether she understood what the nuclear option was, and I was all excited just to show a clip of Sarah Palin not understanding what the nuclear option was, but I think she didn't speak exactly about what it was, but it wasn't like a gotcha clip where I could show you she didn't understand it. But she did talk about the war on Christmas. That's what her book is about. And I've done several different videos on the war on Christmas over the years. And even before I was ever making YouTube videos as a ACLU volunteer on the ACLU message boards, I used to argue about the bogus war on Christmas and also whether the United States is a Christian nation. And that's kind of the topic of this clip here that the last clip I'm going to show you from Sarah Palin. First, you can see Chris Wallace helped her promote her book and then asked her about whether the United States was founded on faith. And anyway, here's the clip from Sarah Palin to end Liberal Viewer Sunday live clip roundup now.
A new book out. It's called Good Tidings and Great Joy, Protecting the Heart of Christmas. Governor, you say there is a link between faith and freedom. Explain what you mean.
It's an inherent link, and our founders knew that. They said that our government is, our Constitution for our government is written for a religious and moral people, meaning you have to have a strong foundation of faith, believing in something greater than self and not be so selfish. Otherwise, our Constitution isn't going to do any good. There's no need to follow a Constitution or a rule of law if you don't have that foundation. So it's very, very important that we protect the heart of Christmas, which then will protect the heart of America. And it's been a wonderful book tour, 21 cities thus far. And it is all about good tidings and great joy and amazing, amazing, inspiring, energetic people whom we've met along the trail. Love them, and it's a good book.
So... yeah, I don't think that Sarah Palin's argument there about the United States being founded on faith, there weren't a lot of facts there in support of the argument. The one quote she used was that our Constitution was created for a religious and moral people. And if you look down in the video description, that phrase actually comes from John Adams' 1798 letter. Down in the video description below me, I put a link to John Adams' 1798 letter to the officers of the 1st Brigade of the 3rd Division of the Militia of Massachusetts. And he did actually make that statement about the Constitution being written for a religious and moral people, but he didn't say Christian. And John Adams, he's actually not one of my favorite founding fathers, although he did do some good things, especially defending people who are unpopular from criminal charges and the whole Boston Massacre thing. But and as a criminal defense attorney, I like that. But John Adams, I guess he was a Christian, but he was kind of a quasi-deist. He was a Unitarian Universalist, which these days is non-denominational. It's not even really Christian. Back in those days, it was a little more Christian, but he didn't believe in the divinity of Jesus, which is what Sarah Palin was talking about there. So he was talking about the need for people to be moral, not selfish, not so much needing faith. And, of course, the other thing about John Adams, he's the one who signed the Treaty of Tripoli. And for those who aren't familiar with the Treaty of Tripoli, I also put a link down in the video description to the Treaty of Tripoli, and I have Article 11 of the Treaty of Tripoli here, which says, as the government of the United States of America is not in any sense founded on the Christian religion, as it has in itself no character of enmity against the laws, religion, or tranquility of Mussulmen, and as the said states never entered in any war or active hostility against the Mahometan nation, it is declared by the parties that no pretext arising from religious opinion shall ever produce an interruption of the harmony existing between the two countries. So this was a treaty with Libya or the Muslim nations there that had to do with the Barbary pirates, but it does start off, it does have that phrase in it that the United States of America is not in any sense founded on the Christian religion. So that is another quote from John Adams that Sarah Palin should be aware of. And of course the whole war on Christmas thing is bogus. But anyway, those are the clips I want to play for you. And I'm going to do a little quick Marco Rubio there. I don't know if he's still running for president. I think he probably will be, but that drinking of the water as the Marco Rubio should gain more popularity for that. So I'm going to go look in the discussion section here. I think I have the audio a little better, so you shouldn't be getting a lot of the ringing or the feedback that may have been last week. I think I had my microphone turned a little bit too loud there. So now what is going on here? It made me sign out here. So okay, here we go. So I'm going to go through. It looks like I have a whole bunch of people watching. Oh, I notice who is it who asked here about the Stephen Colbert book. Several people. The Stephen Colbert book. Yeah, I noticed right when I started. It's down on the floor. It fell on the floor, but whatever. I guess some people said it was distracting. It fell on the floor, so at least for this week. But it's not in the video description, but it is right down there. So those of you asking about the Stephen Colbert book, maybe I should take a poll as to whether I should put it back up. But it fell on the floor. Let me see. Let's see. Jake Legg asked, does Barry believe what he says? Well, I don't know. He probably believes it when he says it. I mean, I didn't show any clips this week about President Obama's loss in trust from the American people, though that was discussed in a couple places. I think maybe in that Martha Raddatz clip, or one of the clips I showed, it was like one of the upcoming things that we're going to talk about. So yeah, I didn't show the clips about how President Obama is in one of his downturns. I talked about that a lot last week and showed some clips about that. And of course, one of the things that's going to happen in this coming week is President Obama has promised. First, he said that the healthcare.gov website would be fixed by November 30th, and then he sort of qualified a little, saying it would be for the vast majority of people, it would be working correctly. But November 30th, that's coming up this week. So next week, if the healthcare.gov website is still not working for a lot of people, that will be another hit to his credibility. And if it is working, at least for the vast majority of people, then that may be the beginning of his credibility coming back. I don't know, but these things do go in cycles. So let me see. Let's see. I see. Oh, someone here has been watching me since 2006. Yeah, I've been going since July 2006. So let me see. I see a lot of people talking to each other here. C. Jefferson 3, I guess, joined me late, said totally watching the full show next week. And, before I started, I saw a lot of people discussing back and forth. Is the show later tonight? Isn't it usually at 5? I saw a bunch of comments posted before I actually started. It's 6:30 p.m. Pacific every single week. I've been doing it at this time. It's possible in 2 weeks on December 8th. I haven't decided yet. I may have to skip that week, or because it's that's the Bill of Rights celebration day for the ACLU, and I may be going to San Francisco that day, and I won't have time to do the show. But I haven't. If I can just attend a part of the meeting by phone, I may still do the show. Anyway, I'll let you know next week whether there'll be a show on December 8th. But let me see. I'm getting almost to the 1 hour mark, but Andrew Blumenfeld asks, how do you lose over 100%? Well, yeah, that was my point from, I don't know, maybe that lost something in the translation. But yeah, that guy reporting gave a lot of good information about what was going on inside Iran. You don't get a lot of good reporting from inside Iran, but that thing about the currency dropping 100%, yeah, I don't. Let's see. Oh, crucifixion. Then, since the end of 2011, Iran's currency has lost over 80% in value. Well, 80% in value, that I can buy. And yeah, maybe I should have looked that up before I started the show. But yeah, can't lose more than 100% in value, right? I mean, the sanctions are working, but you can't give more than 110%, right? That's only on sports, and I'm not a big sports fan. So let's see. Oh, NO8549 asks, What war on Christmas? Maybe she's against the consumerist Christmas. Well, I didn't show the whole thing from Sarah Palin, but she went on and on about putting the Christ back in Christmas and how it's all about spreading the word of Jesus. And I don't know. I haven't read her book, but maybe I'll do a book review of it. I don't know. I don't like to give Sarah Palin that much airtime. That's kind of why I saved her as kind of a comedy clip at the end there. But I have done several videos over the years about the fake war on Christmas, and I don't know, I don't do them every year, but almost every year, so we'll see if there ends up being a good fake war on Christmas story this year so I can do one. But or maybe I could just review her book, but then I'd actually have to buy it, and that might be too much. So let me see. People are saying I should have a weekly book instead of the Colbert book, and I'm almost out of comments, and I'm almost up to an hour. Last one is LiberalViewer. What do you think of the one-way trip to Mars in 2022? You want me to go on a one-way trip to Mars? I don't know. I'm not. I think I saw something about a one-way trip to Mars because, of course, that's a lot easier than a round trip to Mars. But I don't really know a lot about that. And I'm coming up on the 1 hour mark. I'm glad to see that I had so many people joining me this week. 90, 100 people around were watching most of the show. So thanks for that. And I will be doing another show next week. Definitely, even though it'll be the Sunday after Thanksgiving, and I don't know, things seem to be winding down a little on the Sunday shows this week. That's why I had a little bit lower than the usual number of clips. Also, Bill Maher is going on vacation till I think it's January 17th, sometime in mid-January, so there won't be any more real-time clips. I don't know, I may have to supplement it with something else. I've been looking around, but anyway, I appreciate all of you joining me, and I appreciate all the good comments, and I saw you were arguing back and forth without any help from me, so I like it when I see that happen, get a little live discussion going. I'm sorry that YouTube comments have been instituted on my live events now. Last week I was trumpeting how you could still use the old YouTube comment system. Right now, when it's a live event, there's this weird system where you can only leave 200 character comments, but once it's a recorded show, it's the new YouTube comment system. So sorry about that, but please join me this coming week. Also check out the video I made and uploaded last Friday about how Fox News Sunday tried to I showed this on LiberalViewer Sunday live clip roundup. I sort of expanded on the clips I showed there with an idea I got from a comment in the discussion section. One of the great comments I got about how the Simpsons parody of Fox News came true, where the Simpsons had predicted that there'd be a Fox News. They did a parody Fox News crawl that said JFK posthumously joins Republican Party, and that's kind of what I showed last week on the LiberalViewer Sunday live clip roundup, where Fox News Sunday was trying to claim JFK was a conservative. And so anyway, I made a video about that. That's produced edited video that some people seem to prefer. It's only 6 minutes long, so check that out if you haven't seen it. And anyway, again, thank you for joining me. I'm gonna wrap up the show now. For my viewers here in the United States, enjoy the rest of your Sunday evening, and for those who are on other parts of the planet, enjoy the beginning of your week, or I don't know, my New Zealand and Australia viewers, I don't even know what time it is there, but anyway, thanks for joining me. I hope you enjoyed the clips I picked out for you all, and that is the end of the show for tonight.